Muse, we haven't had a conversation for a while. I feel kind of negligent in that respect. But hey, I've been busy. I've been writing the stories that you have inspired. But that's not what I want to talk about. Last night I was writing, as I usually do, and I finished up my writing, as I want to do. And I put away the old trusty laptop and I picked up my Kindle and I started to read another book. And as I was reading, I stepped back away from the individual words and looked at the picture, the literal picture that the words laid out, not the metaphorical picture or the picture in my mind's eye, but the picture that I saw, the layout of the paragraphs. And what I was looking at was a book that was I talk about this ad nauseum sometimes, but a book of block after block after block of paragraph. And I started thinking about it. And I go back and I look at my work, and you don't see that. You'll see a block of paragraph, and then a sentence, and then a single word, and it's all mixed up. And of course, as we artists are, I started to wonder, is there a right and wrong? Of course, I immediately told myself, no, there is not a right and wrong. But I really started pondering this idea of the layout of sentence and paragraph structure and what it means with my work compared to other authors' work. And the only conclusion that I could draw is in my mind is that beyond preference, beyond artistic preference and merit, or not merit, but preference, is that you can take a single sentence, craft it just right, such that it gives it the same impact as an entire paragraph. I've always liked to call it efficient writing, but that sounds kind of braggadocious. But seriously, though, and I know sometimes that this has caused me problems in that if I were to layer on more and more and more description, I could increase my word count. But that's not who I am. I don't want to go on and on and on about describing something. I like to leave some of that up to the reader. I like to give them the ability to fill in some of the blanks, so that the picture that they come up with in their mind as they're reading my books is very unique to their experience. That, of course, I'm not saying either way is right or wrong. I'm not saying that it's wrong for a writer to overly describe things. Granted, there is a point where you reach negative returns, where you're describing too much and you're kind of going away from the primary reason, which is story. But I think that if there is no reason to worry, there is no cause to be alarmed, as the Fix once sang, because I can have, like I said, I can have as much impact with a single sentence, or in some instances a single word, than I could with an entire paragraph, a block of words. And I think personally, it's the only right or wrong is if you force yourself to write in a style that is not in your voice. And my voice is not big blocks of paragraphs. But it's interesting because I read a lot, and I think, especially in specific genres, more writers tend to lean heavier on description. I tend to lean heavier on dialogue. And it's just my style. And but what I think is important is a good mixture of them. You need to guide the reader in such a way that they have clues as to what a surroundings looks like, or a person looks like, because they don't want to have to picture it all on their own, because then what is your purpose as a writer? But the single most important thing is no matter whether or not you're writing in single sentences or blocks of paragraphs, the most important thing is that you're telling a good story. And I know that right now it may sound like I'm trying to convince myself that this is the case, but I'm not. That's the truth. We are beholden as writers to the story. Just like as an actor, you are beholden to the text to tell that story. And you are also beholden to the characters, to the truth of the characters. As a writer, I am beholden to the truth of my story and my characters, regardless of how I put forth that truth. But, and I guess that maybe my style, obviously, my style comes from my background as an actor, and an actor depending heavily upon dialogue. And so my books are dialogue heavy. And it's not that I write a book and it's all dialogue. That would be an interesting experiment, I think. But my books, you just look at them. You can open one of them up and you can see there's a lot of dialogue in it. But at the same time, the narrator has its own voice, his or her own voice. So in the end, there is no right or wrong. The only wrong being that you don't serve the story, and you are not truthful to your voice. And I know writers that have tried to force their style a certain way, and it usually fails. Because when you force it, you are leaving behind that which you have spent so much time developing, which is your voice, your unique voice. There's only one of you. Everybody else is already taken. They're already done. They're doing it. They're doing their thing. Don't be a carbon copy of other writers. Don't open up a book and see big paragraphs and say, that's what I want to be. I want to be a big boy writer that writes big boy paragraphs. No. Be a writer that honors the story and honors the characters. You can honor a story and characters with dialogue and with description, with big paragraphs and single sentences and single words. It's really, really, really easy as a writer to constantly think you have to not be adapting, because we do have to adapt. In the adaptation being that we're constantly improving. But you don't have to be a chameleon in such that you emulate other writers' styles, whatever's popular at the time, whatever is in vogue, as it were. Be you. Write your style. Muse. Do you write, Muse? Because I would imagine that if a muse wrote a book, it would be perfect. It would be brilliant. It would be the single most glorious story ever written. But instead you have to use us as middlemen and women. Middlemen, that's such a... Middle people? Middle humans? I don't know. Seriously, Muse. It can be so complicated. And as a writer, you can overthink things. As long as you catch yourself overthinking those things. Like, oh my God, my story structure is just nothing but single sentences and dialogue. Don't overthink that. Just do it. And just make sure that you use an editor. You know, an editor will be good. A good editor will say, you know, there's too much of this or too little of that. Doubt. It is not what's for dinner. If you have doubt in your head, whatever you can do to get rid of it, because it will serve no purpose other than to undermine your craft. Okay? Muse, you're freaking awesome. You know that? I love the fact that I have a muse that is constantly bombarding me with ideas. And I hope that I do them justice. You've never said either way, Muse. You have never whispered in my ear, good job with that story I gave you. And that's fine. I don't need to be patted on the back by my muse. All I need is for you to keep on giving me stories. Anyway, I think my stomach's growling. I need to get something to eat. Muse, I don't know how you spend your days, but have a good one. I know you'll be tapping into here. Anyway, bye-bye, Muse. Until next time. Princess Wave.